Hey Chantaye, how are you?
Ooh.
Is that a good? No,
I've been
we
out
here,
all day.
right?
I've been gone. I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning. It's 9 o'clock at night.
Where you going still? You
So I
going?
went to a Rotary Club meeting. I met with a reporter, activist, where we're going to start a grassroots campaign around human trafficking and my missing children.
Beautiful.
I
I
was
want
with
to
the
hear more about that.
accountant for 3 hours, um, discussing what that looks like. I've been on trainings, Georgia Micro Enterprise Network. I did a training there. Shout out to Derek Automotives, did a training there. Like, I've just been zooming in meetings, face to
Changing
face
my
and
life.
driving in between meetings. And somewhere in there, I ate some of the best Indian food today. So that was my day and sitting in traffic in Atlanta
You
in
gonna give
rush
them a
hour.
shout out?
No, I ain't gonna give them a shout out. I ain't getting no check from them. Everybody I mentioned, we gonna do some business to help
Some good Indian
grow
food
me.
from now. We got some good Indian food from now.
I sure did, girl. But how was your day, Nique?
My day's been good. I mean, amongst toddlering, I've been working with Pops the Dancer on this very great event that we're doing in Atlanta for the youth. It's going to be awesome. We implemented a lot of new concepts that we were planning on highlighting kid entrepreneurs, doing providing free haircuts, and pampering the kids. So not just providing haircuts, but also pedicures and manicures for the little girls, and we're going all out. So I'm really, really excited about that.
That's dope. And I know when I spoke with him, one of his main inspirations too was making sure that the youth had role models and having previously incarcerated males share their story and share how they've overcome to be
Right.
able to make sure that the youth didn't have to experience that. So that's real dope. That's
Yes.
really cool, awesome, amazing. I was an NA
Also,
at some point. You can't say dope everywhere
dope
because
too
it
much,
triggers
right?
people.
Right. No, definitely trigger alert. But yeah, so I'm really excited about that. Definitely the deterrence of criminalization. So we're definitely working that angle in different ways, trying to make it as fun as possible, but as informative as possible. And then the
Yeah.
resources that we plan to provide, they're going to be great. So a lot of free stuff is going to be amazing. So any Atlanta viewers, it's going to be on August 6th.
Yep.
Follow
And
us.
because people also don't realize that, what is it? One, what's statistic? Is it like 1 out of 5 brown or black elementary kids goes to prison with the jail with the school to prison pipeline? It's a high.
Oh yes, the
That
school
may
to
not be it. That may not be the actual percentage. I know foster care is like 1 out of 3,
wow.
and right now with black women, since I don't know since when, but I know with black women, the statistic has risen where 800% are being like, it's like 800% more. Um,
Likely for them to end up in prison.
yeah, than
Wow.
it was. Yeah, 800%.
And these are people who
Let me find a statistic. Who
were
is
in
Ellis? Oof, Ellis, you a busy woman. When you got time for me, I don't.
this is so this is women who have been in the foster care system, you said.
No,
Or
for black women these
just
days,
period.
period.
Oh wow.
Uh huh.
Wow. It's very interesting because as we'll talk about soon, there were a lot of as I was looking up the statistics in prisons and women being incarcerated with mental health problems, which is our topic tonight. I was actually surprised the numbers are actually double compared to men, and just from my study in psychology, it is a great disparity between men and women. But I was interested to see how that plays out in the criminal justice system, and it's very alarming to say the least.
Okay, I'm going to read this really quickly. This is from, so to cite this, this is from an article with Atlanta Black Star publication, Behind Bars, 6 Things You Should Know About Black Women in Prison. So, according to this article, It says, so there was a report done, and it focused on African American and Latino women. And it said, according to the report, between 1980 and 2014, the number of women behind bars increased 700%, the fastest growing segment of the prison population. And Black women are more likely to go to prison than any other racial or ethnic group. In fact, 1 in 16 African American women, in contrast to 1 in 111 white women and 1 in 45 Latino women. And that's from the Bureau of Justice Statistics. And Black women are extremely represented represented in state and federal prison, so much that their rate of imprisonment is greater than double the rate for white women. While 53 of every 100,000 white women are sentenced to state or federal institutions, Black women suffer from an incarceration rate of 109 out of 100,000. And it says the war on drugs has negatively impacted Black and Latino women. When it comes to drug offenses, women are more likely to be in prison than men. I didn't know that. And while women consume and sell drugs at the same rate, Black and Latino women are more likely to be caught up in a system with little leverage in negotiating shorter sentences. 12,000 pregnant women are locked up every year, amounting to 6% of incarcerated women. There are 28 states without laws prohibiting the dangerous practice of shackling pregnant women during childbirth, which places mother and child at risk. African American and Indian girls are more likely to be placed in juvenile detention facilities at a rate of 1.7 and over 4 times more than white girls. And finally, incarcerated women are more likely to be victims of domestic violence. 71% of women behind bars, according to a 2008 study, suffer from mental health challenges. 73% state prison and 75% local jails, and have a history of substance abuse. 73% in state prison and 47% in federal prison. So,
I just think that goes to show the intent and agenda of the criminal justice system in general.
yep. So I just want to reiterate that last statistic so that it can tie into what our show is about tonight. So once again, that statistic is 73% of women, African American, no, just joking, of incarcerated women, 73% in state prisons, 75% in local jails of women have mental health challenges. Yeah.
Insane. And I have yeah, as we move along in the episode, there's some other very alarming statistics. This general question of what is the United States really doing for its mental health community? For
Nothing.
for the
Institutionalizing and jailing and prisoning.
and it's almost like for one, there the way the systemic racism and every other system that is kind of supported by this country are designed, it kind of perpetuates mental health and generates mental health. So for them not to have a solution, a proposed option for them, the people that we're going to talk about today, a lot of them were seeking help.
Yep.
They were seeking help, and it's disheartening because as a psychology major, and I have my degree in psychology, it's really interesting how, I mean, well, actually, let me say that we talked about we talked about it a lot, how how there's no support, how America kind of got on the psychology wave way too late. They acknowledged disorders way too late. Their methods were bad for a very long time, and nothing was said, and nothing was acknowledged about it. So we're behind, very much so, compared to other countries.
So I can agree with you, but there's another part that doesn't get spoken of a lot. So back in the 80s, when they were issuing, I can't talk tonight. Back in the 80s, when they were issuing the war on drugs, what
Right.
people don't realize is drugs were actually categorized being a drug addict as a form of mental illness. And so drug addicts in the 80s used to get Social Security checks. So when there was when there were people who were unhoused or homeless or whatever the situation was, a lot of them would say that they were on drugs, they had a problem with drugs or anything. They'd create that narrative so that
So
they
they
could
can
get
get the check.
shelter, so that they could get the check. And that created the number of people who were classified as living with mental illness. And
Mm,
so when it comes to mental illness, because there were so many active drug addicts on mental illness, they decided to make it so that the jails and the prisons actually are the ones who own the mental health medicines. So it's like a revolving door,
mhm.
because if you live with mental
That's
health challenges, issues, anything, if you have any kind of problem with mental illness, what happens is if you go to jail, they give you the medicine, but the medicine belongs to the jail. So once you're released, you get released without the medication. So after
mm,
about 3 months, by the time it actually wears off, you're back in jail. That's why you hear those stories of people, especially from the 80s and 90s, who were on drugs, who were incarcerated like 60 times, 70 times criminal trespass and disorderly conduct, because it was classified as mental health. And instead of giving people the proper treatment, which jails
they were
isn't it, from my
that.
own experience, um, they're medicating, and a lot of people who were on drugs self-medicated to avoid their mental illness.
Mm.
So it's like a combination problem. Who is Oof Ellis? I need to know who Oof Ellis is, because Oof Ellis is on here each week with no picture and prayed Prada too crazy is too. Hey y'all. Hey
Hey,
Prada.
we appreciate your consistency.
Yep. So you want to cue up the video, Nikkei?
So here we go. Just a second. Okay. I can just.
So while Nikkei is queuing it up, we're gonna have us a conversation, y'all, about what is our great country doing for those like me, like some of y'all who live with this mental health thing. And what is this country doing to decriminalize people, our nation, like a large segment of society who have lived experience with mental health? You ready, Rebel?
Yes. Can you see my screen?
I see you. I see the screen down here. You want me to cue it in?
The presentation, can you see it?
Yeah, now I can. You see it? You see you?
I don't see me, but I do see the presentation.
That looks pretty. Okay, let's go, girl. Go, girl, go.
Okay, wait. Am I controlling it or you are?
You are.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Sorry, guys. So, we posed a question first of all. Does the justice system have adequate resources to tend to America's mental health population? So, like Chantaye was saying just now, and what I was gonna say was, in my research and my study, um, my degree path, I would say we never addressed that. And I guess because, of course, that's politics. You know what I'm saying? That will be proven that there is conspiracy within United States government, and that there is a revolving door for people with mental health and minorities in general. But we never talked about how the prisons are actually, you know what I'm saying, able to supply these medications and then not giving it to people. So there isn't a pathway. There isn't real help. So before that, before we talk about the prison system, I wanted to talk about what happens before they even end up in prison. Like, the fact that they're ending up in prison kind of makes them lucky, because a lot of people don't. A lot of mental health sufferers are calling 911, or maybe their family members are calling 911 in active desperation to try to get them help, and they're ending up on the unlucky end of the spectrum, and being murdered by the police because of lack of knowledge and lack of, I would say, training on how to deal with these mental health crisis situations.
Yeah, we do have a couple of places like in Atlanta. We have PADS, which is what is it? Police. I don't know what PADS stands for, but it's the pre-arrest. There it goes. Pre-arrest diversion.
Okay.
S, whatever S stands for, but they deal with when PADS is called. That's someone who's in a mental health crisis. They come in, they intervene, and instead of just taking them to jail, they try to take them to a mental health hospital, or they just try to give them the coping skills, the resources, everything that they need to calm them down and to de-escalate the situation so that no one is killed. And at one point, we
That's
also had the
beautiful.
mental health diversion courts, where if you live with mental health, they would send you to a diversion court. And with the diversion courts, you had an advocate who would step in for you and advocate. Because when you're in a mental health crisis, you speak jibber jabber. No one knows the language that you're
Yeah.
speaking. And so they would talk for you and speak for you and help you to navigate, to have a place to stay and everything else, to have what you need to be able to function in society again. So you got to remember to
That's
keep funding
awesome.
those programs.
Yeah. Support those programs, and also I think we should probably on a future episode highlight a lot of those programs just so people know that these resources are out there, because sometimes calling 911 won't end appropriately. So the fact that there's other resources out there available to access, maybe even before it gets that far. But I wanted to remember some of the people who were affected by the lack of knowledge in the criminal justice system. Police officers are not trained. So this is not saying that this is absolutely police officers' fault, and that they're this is not us placing blame on them like other like previous episodes, I would say. But this is definitely us just saying that there needs to be adequate training for police officers, or maybe even someone that goes along with them on these calls for mental health crisis, because too many times it's ending with the loss of life for the
Mm.
sufferer, which is obviously like the opposite intent for the call. So with people actually getting to the point where they have to, or they feel the need to call law enforcement for these things, when they're met with aggression or lack of understanding or just a lack of knowledge on how to take care of it, it's disheartening, and it makes them feel like they're in a place where there's no help. So the first person that I wanted to remember was Laquan McDonald. Laquan McDonald was one of, I think he highlighted the problem with mental health in the criminal justice system, and how police officers were handling these crises came when they happened upon them. Because this actual young man, he was 17 years old. He had a long history of mental health. Like Chantaye stated earlier, he was actually in the government, in the care of the government when he was from birth until he was about 5 years old. So he was in foster care. He did bounce around a lot as a toddler, and then later on he actually found a stable home with his grandmother, but he still suffered. And on one of those nights he got violent, and he was in the street in Chicago, and they called the police, and they ended up shooting him 16 times
Dang.
because he had a knife. And that sparked a lot of outrage in the community. I don't know if, like, I'm pretty sure people are remembering that Chicago story when because of the video went viral, of course, of him being gunned down in the middle of the street. He was nowhere near the officers, and he had a 3-inch blade. So it was
Mm.
like, wow, you with semi-automatic weapons and him with a 3-inch blade. Apparently, I mean, he was 6'2", so of course they said he opposed extreme threat. But
Girl, he was black.
right,
That's all they knew. He was a big black guy. That's how they reported him.
Right,
to
he
each
was
other.
17 years old. He had learning disabilities. He suffered from PTSD because of his.
Okay.
He had such a traumatic life. His mom was abused. It was a lot. His mom was 14 when she had him,
Wow.
and she was abused by her caretaker. So she was in the foster system herself. So yeah, it was a lot, and his story was very interesting. He's still and it actually exposed a lot of wrongdoing and a lot of cover-ups within the Chicago Police Department, and I think the police commissioner actually resigned because of this case. So it was a lot of good things that came from it. So he was a catalyst, but it still goes to say very much that it was uncalled for and could have been handled better.
You want
The
to go to
next person
Nigel?
was, yeah, to Nigel. I know. Are you familiar with
Nikkei, can you
Nigel's
hear me?
story? Can you hear me?
Nikkei, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, you were. It could have been my computer. You were robotish for a minute. I couldn't hear you.
Oh, okay. So Nigel is an Atlanta story. This happened last month. No, wait. Yeah, this happened last month because we're in June now. So I really wanted to highlight him because his family is still demanding justice. His family is still hurting. This is still a very, very new situation. And I think anybody who cares about mental health, I wouldn't even say if you're in the industry or if you have some type of loved one, I would just say if you have a care for people, especially people with mental health, and believe that they deserve some type of service, because like Shantae said, that there's supposed to be people who can go out in Atlanta, and this happened in Atlanta. So for her to say that that was implemented in Atlanta, and then for this to happen just last month, just shows that obviously the system isn't being run as effectively as it could be. So I wanted to share his parents' video.
Okay, you have it.
Yeah, just a second.
Oh, okay, I'll add it.
To go get him help. She called today and talked to the 911 and told him, well, what we learned is that our son was killed today. But we tried today to get him help today, me and his mom, to go get him help. She called today and talked to the 911 and told him what was going on. We was at his residence and they supposed to come. We waited like an hour and 45 minutes. We tried our best to hold him there and he left.
So, and this is what I want to say. When I came to my son's apartment today to check on him, I saw that he wasn't well.
Mm-hmm.
I called 911. I let them know my son has mental health issues. Not sure if he used any substances and references pills. I don't know. But I explained to him in great detail his fear when I got on the phone with them. I said he's an African American male. Please make sure whoever shows up is trained and knowledgeable. So when they deal with my son, I don't have to worry about my son being killed.
Hmm.
I waited almost 2 hours. They didn't show. I tried to keep him. He left out. Not even 30, 45 minutes later, he on the news. So you mean to tell me when we call and tell you that a person has a mental health issue,
Mm-hmm.
they are in a manic phase to the degree that we don't know if he's going to do harm to himself or what. We need help. So we reach out to the police department and help my son. But make sure when you come I don't care about all the education I got. I made sure I was descriptive. I made sure they knew when they came, they don't hurt my child.
Mhm.
He left 45 minutes later. I'm assuming from what I'm learning, my son is deceased. This is an interview that I never wish on my worst enemy. But I want y'all to know something has to change. And I'm going to be a part of that change. I don't want to see another mother that's out there struggling. And their worst fear is being killed by a cop. Now, I don't know all the details. And that's neither here nor there. The truth of the matter is, I waited for 2 hours for help. I go out on the sidewalk, I see police officers driving by Midtown. I go to the end of the block, I see police officers standing at the end of the block. Where's my help? My son leaves, not even 10 minutes before they arrived. If they would have came even an hour and 15 minutes early, my son would have still been here. I even told them when I called, I said, I already did my due diligence. I already called to make sure that they had a bed at Riverwood Behavior Health. I said, I called and made sure I'm going to follow them down there. I do all the paperwork for my son. I said, so all you have to do is transport them. I just need your help to transport them. And they didn't show.
And you verbalized it.
I verbalized it. And I said, I want to make sure that I communicate this to you. So that way when they come, they don't kill my son and they give him the help that he needs.
What was their response?
Well, they would be out there immediately. You know, you don't have to worry. They asked me about a description, you know, all the formalities. That was all fine. But when this happened here, at this establishment in Buckhead, they come immediately. But you made me wait 2 hours, almost 2 hours. And if they would have came, even if they would have came an hour and 15 minutes after I called, given the fact that they outside doing other stuff, standing on the corner with another situation, one cop not doing anything, sitting at the light, but nobody don't come to my call. If you would have came at least an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes early, my son would have still been here. I would have rather for him to be in a psychiatric hospital opposed to being outside in a body bag.
What were the circumstances that happened here at the restaurant?
I don't know the details. I don't.
Wow.
So the circumstances that happened at the restaurant was Nigel in while during his mental health crisis, he left the house like his mom said in a rage. He did have a firearm with him. His mom did not know that. He went to Fogo de Chao in Buckhead where he previously worked, and he still knew people there. And apparently he got into an altercation with someone. He was being unruly, so they called the cops. The cops immediately showed up, like his mom said, and they tried to subdue him apparently, and they tased him. And upon tasing him, they say he became really, really aggressive. Of course, right?
When you tase.
Obviously, you know. So yeah, you shoot electricity in him, and then you're surprised when he becomes aggressive. And then he tried to get out of he tried to run away from the restaurant, and the security guard intervened and tackled him. He then shot the security guard, who is fine, and the police killed him. And his mom called 2 hours previously and told them, you know what I mean, he was having an episode. So they know. We know how police scanners kind of work. You know, the call goes out. So how they prioritize things, we don't know. But obviously, like she said, things need to change.
They prioritize them by zip code. It's another way. So,
but they lived in Buckhead too, though. They live in Buckhead.
Oh, do they?
Mm-hmm. They live in Midtown, rather.
Midtown and Buckhead aren't the same.
Ain't the same. But yeah, prayers go out to the Cullens family, his parents, his sisters, his brothers. They were a beautiful family. And like I said, they're still fighting for justice. This is 3 weeks out. Their son needs justice. He needs support. So if you care to rally, if you care to sign a change.org petition, if you care, whatever you care to do to add to this, to help, definitely do so. Because people are asking for help. They're literally asking for it. They're like she said, I did my due diligence as a mom. I told you what was going to, and the reason why I picked their story to broadcast is obviously because it just happened, and then because she said she did, not to say that the other parents didn't, because the other parents that we're going to look at, they did too. They called and they asked, hey, can you come and get my loved one, because I already did, I called the psychiatric facility, they are already waiting, can you just transport them? And they're not coming out alive. So whatever change needs to happen, wherever it's lacking at, it needs to be identified. We have to challenge our city council members, our local police departments and sheriffs, go to your meetings and figure out what's really going on, because
Definitely.
there's a lack of knowledge and a lack of empathy, but mostly a lack of knowledge. Oh, I'll go back to the next slide, or same slide, next person.
I'm so at a loss for words. Like anyone who knows me knows I am one of the most unemotional people on the planet. Like, it's not that I'm unemotional. I just don't get attached to my emotions so that they run me. So I've been called all types of things. I live with psychosis also. So I've been called psychopaths. I've been called, said that I lack empathy, all those beautiful things. But anytime that we are in this conversation, I tear up. If I start talking about solitary confinement, I might space out. Um, but this, I don't know if it's a there goes I in a narcissistic kind of way, or if it's just a there goes I in a really understanding the pain and the plight, because I remember life before severe mental health and before incarcerations. And it can really happen to anyone. Like, I probably struggled with depression, but it was something as simple as being assaulted and robbed and having someone hit me in the head. That's how I landed into jail for the first time, after I was assaulted and robbed and I was delusional walking the streets. And so it's been a long decade, this journey with mental health. Like, it's had some real highs and lows. And when I see situations like that, I think of Candida, who had that's how I started advocating around others with mental health, where she's doing 20 years right now in federal prison because Candida Summerlin. Um, she was standing in the middle of a lake in psychosis. The police tried to bring her in, like, she's in psychosis, standing in a lake. What makes you think she's in her normal state of mind? And they tried to bring her
Right.
in. And when they did, she jumped in her car, hit a police officer. She hit one police officer. They broke their leg. And they tried to charge her with attempted murder of a police officer. And she got 20. I want to say she might even be doing that. No, she's in state time, but she's doing 20 years for that charge. Although she was off medication, they could show a history of mental health. We did advocating for her. You know, Kimberly Gomez had her breakdown on social media. The police officers came in, charged her with terroristic threat, had snipers pointed at her and all of her 5 of her kids, took her kids into foster care, told her that how beautiful her kids were and how they wanted them, how they had other families who would be better off with them, wanting to adopt them, all of that. And I was advocating for these people. And then my doctor said, you're too high functioning, and took me off my mental health meds and refused to put me back on them, which led to my own journey. And I don't even know how many times I was incarcerated and how many times I was maced, or how many times I almost had my arm broken, or had people slap me across the face with handcuffs while I was handcuffed to other people, all because of mental health. So when I see stories like this, it's really like a there goes I. I don't know how many sleepless nights my mother spent. When you live with mental health, they also do little tricky things to keep you incarcerated. Like knowing my family's coming from out of state, they might tell them she'll be in court on Wednesday. Come Wednesday, they'll say she's not competent to stand trial. And they don't transport you, or they transport you to the court and never take you to the courtroom. And then 2 weeks later, they take you to court when your family's not there. So your family's left out the loop. They don't know what's going on with you and things like that. So, yeah, this is, it has me feeling real emotional over here and has me triggered.
I'm sorry. It's definitely one of those things where you don't know what to say.
This is good information. This is information that needs to be passed on. People need to care. I probably wouldn't have cared until I experienced it firsthand, because it's so unfathomable, where you never think that people really, I say, it wasn't until this last round of me going to jail, facing 20 years in prison, where I really realized that evil exists. And I've seen a lot of things in my life, but I really met evil while
I'm there.
sitting there of a class action lawsuit for over 200 cases of cruel and inhumane treatment to minority women with mental health. So just imagine some of the things that happen, but I know that evil exists. Lions, tigers, and bears, oh my, ain't shit on some of the evil that happens in those jails. You ready to queue up, Nique?
I have. Can you see the slideshow?
There you go.
Okay. So the next case that I was gonna talk, next person rather, I'm sorry. The next person that I was going to discuss was Michelle Couzeau. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. She was a 50-year-old Black woman. She was a vibrant lady. That's what I kept reading about. I was reading about her today, and everybody kept saying how vibrant she was. They was using that word specifically. And she suffered from bipolar and schizophrenia also, and she was murdered by Arizona police during a transition to mental health facility. Her mother described it almost the same way as Nigel's mom. She said, actually, Michelle called them herself. Michelle called her caseworker. She called her mom. Her mom called the caseworker. Michelle called the caseworker, and then the caseworker called the police to transition her to the mental health facility. And then when the police got there, they're not sure what happened because Michelle was there by herself. So when the police got there, they exchanged words. We're not sure what was said, but Michelle ended up with one shot to her chest, and she was found dead at the scene, which is insane, because it's another scenario which they knew what they were walking into, and then it still ended badly. So I just think, I think walk away. Like, I mean, that's what I would say. It's not, she hasn't committed a crime. You have no obligation to enter her apartment or such,
And let me say this too, real quick. I just want to say this about that diagnosis, because a lot of time, and I'm not saying that you did anything wrong. I'm sure you did 100% everything right in capturing the fact that they said she was bipolar and schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times so when you go to these hospitals, they just throw out diagnoses. They give you any and every diagnosis that they think that you should have. And a person who is bipolar and schizophrenic, I found this out for myself because I had a bunch of diagnoses. There's something called schizoaffective disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And schizoaffective disorder is what's between bipolar and schizophrenia. So if a person is bipolar and a person is schizophrenic, they're not both. They're schizoaffective. Mm-hmm. And schizoaffective is the illusions of grandiosity. So even in that picture, she looks like she's the life of the party. And if the police came and she said, "I'm the Queen of Sheba, and this is my throne and my castle, what you doing coming in here?" That's normal for a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because if a police officer is only trained in looking at depression and bipolar, they don't know what to do with schizoaffective. And if they're only trained in looking at schizophrenia, when someone's talking to themselves and hallucinating, seeing things that aren't there and things like that, they don't know what to do with schizoaffective. So it's really important that we start holding these medical health providers to utilizing those books that change every couple of weeks and months and their education to properly diagnose. If you're going to medicate people, you got to properly diagnose, because on the other side of misdiagnosing is also wrongful and sometimes harmful medication management. So if
Right.
she was living with schizoaffective disorder and they gave her a schizophrenic medication, then that schizophrenic medication may have her turn violent because it's the
Exactly.
wrong medication, and vice versa. So I just wanted to bring that up when I saw bipolar and schizophrenic. And I got that from a psychiatrist, that you can't be both. And after that, I did the assessments for a psychiatrist, which looked like bipolar and schizophrenia would be schizoaffective disorder. So I just wanted to share that.
That's definitely relevant. And I would like to say also, just looking at the time, like this, I was just thinking about everything that I had to learn. Just like I don't have my master's in psychology. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and all of the different things that's in the DSM that qualify you to be a sufferer or someone living with mental illness. And then thinking about all the things that police officers have to know just off top hand. And I don't think it's fair to make, like, of course, like a brief knowledge of, this is what you may encounter and this is probably how you should handle it, but I think there has to be another department or a supplemental something to of mental health professionals, and that we'll talk about soon. I want to make sure we get to where they come out and they're able to handle these things so the police don't have to, because it's not to say it's not the job, but like, it's a lot to kind of put on that profession.
Well, I don't know, because there's PADS in Atlanta and there's different ones, the pre-arrest diversion and alternative sentencing units and things like that. But what I'll say is, if 75% of people incarcerated live with mental health, then that may need to be something looked at. Like when I was running for city council, that was a part of my platform, making trauma-informed care, mental health first aid, and I want to say it was suicide prevention, key elements that all CNAs, first responders, police, and firemen should know. Because when they start interacting with mental health first aid, trauma-informed care, and suicide prevention, like on a holistic level, mental health level, then a lot of that would be, for better choice of words, it would be done.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll be absolute for sure. And just to kind of move forward, not any disrespect to our
No.
sis, Miss Sharice Francis, who also lost her life due to her parents calling for her to be transported to a mental health facility. She was in, I want to say, Jamaica, Queens, New York, and they came the same way, and they actually murdered her on her bed from asphyxiation. I mean, she died from asphyxiation, rather. So, like we've been talking about this whole time, these are just some statistics that some of them that I wanted to share, that just shows how mental health is being addressed in the United States. It's definitely being criminalized. Not only is it being criminalized, but the prison system, the jail and prison system is generating mental illness in a sense to where this statistic right here, you can see it says 12 months plus of incarceration increases the chances of chronic depression. So depression is a mental illness. When it becomes chronic, it presents itself. It can present in many different ways, but it can make you violent. It can make you violent to yourself. So suicide rates do soar in prisons, as we know. It says an estimate of over 100,000. An estimate of 100,000 inmates in the U.S. are being held in solitary confinement, and that's something that Chantaye mentioned earlier. And I don't know if you want to elaborate on that some more, but
yeah, well, I'll say this real quick too. So a lot of people don't know, during George Bush's administration, they started closing the mental health hospitals. But what they also started doing was expanding on the privatized prisons. And so the Bush family, not to be partisan, because I'm not, I'm actually nonpartisan, but the Bush family is one of the largest owners of privatized prisons here in the United States of America. So I think there should be something as far as conflicts of interest when opening these privatized prisons, and with how they actually house people with mental health, because since people with mental health no longer have mental health hospitals, these jails and prisons have become that.
Right.
And regarding solitary confinement, I can remember um, laying in my bed, like it felt so real. I could feel dirt hitting my face, and I could hear people yelling at me. And I was in my cell by myself. There was no dirt, there were no people around, but I was on extended solitary confinement. I'd had the trauma of delivering triplets, no real bonding time there other than 2 days. I had the trauma of no hot meals, no hot showers, of being shackled, um, of being stitched with no medication. I had the trauma of um, having a doctor put her entire hand in me and turn the babies with no medicine. I had the trauma of getting an epidural with Benadryl in my drip, not morphine, but Benadryl. And they gave me an epidural to be able to push. And they were trying to give me a C-section without giving me any medication. And I advocated and kicked and screamed and spit and did all of that stuff. So they kind of backed off of me with that one. But by the time that I was sitting there in the cell, I remember, delivering triplets in November that were due into August, early September, and sitting in that cell covered in blood because they refused to bring me sanitary napkins and because they refused to give me a shower. So from November through June, I had 0 showers. Uh, when they transported me to the mental health courts, to the mental health hospital, by the time I made it there, they're like, so are you going to take your medicine? I was like, no, medicine wasn't offered. I know which medications I take. They didn't bring them to me. Can I please have a shower? And they don't realize that in mental health hospitals, I was just talking about this with Kiana Jones this morning. With mental health hospitals, when you are in the shower, you hit the button and it's scalding hot water. There's no cold water. You just hit the button once and it sprays really hard like a water hose, and it hits your body. And they give you a washcloth for you to put. They may give you a little cup with maybe 2 squirts of shower gel, or they give you a washcloth and they put the shower gel on it themselves. And you have about 2 to 3 minutes to shower. Like, even now, I sometimes struggle with learning or remembering that it's okay for me to be in the shower longer than 5 to 10 minutes. Like a 10-minute shower is long for me. And I remember the first thing that I wanted when I got out of incarceration was a bath, like to sit in a bubble bath. And I was in a transitional housing program. And I told the executive director, I was like, ooh, I took a bubble bath. She was like, with my water? You fill the whole tub up with my water? You're not paying a water bill. You can't be filling the whole tub up. She was serious. And so it's like looking at the whole institution of how you are mismanaged, mishandled, and how it's like so inhumane. It loses the lack of humanity. I remember those police officers walking past. They tried to force me to get an IUD also, 3 times. And I'm convinced that had I gotten an IUD, they would have given me a hysterectomy. And if I would have died on the table, they would have took me to the morgue, because they transport you past the morgue. And, when they were transporting me past the morgue, I know I would have been a Jane Doe had I died. And I just think about how many people lose their life every day to that kind of thing, and what happens to the children. So, yeah, that was my experience with solitary confinement, Nique.
I'm sorry for taking you there now.
That's okay. I have a therapist. I have medication. I have coping skills. I might go cuss out one of my kids. No, I'm joking. I'm like,
No.
my kids laugh at me when I do stupid stuff like that. Like, yeah.
I just want to point out to all our viewers that are watching, this didn't happen in the 80s. Chantaye's not talking about in the 70s. This is very recent things that are happening to people today. So if you I think if you care enough to watch, you probably care enough to do something. So let's do something, advocate for something, make a change, make a donation, do something, sign a petition, because this is really happening to people. And then I also want to say that when you're judging people, you know what I mean? Like, we don't know. You never know a person's story. And I have had the privilege of traveling with Chantaye and being around her and just seeing the way she is on a day-to-day basis, and you would never know. And I just wanted to just commend you for that and just being a survivor, because that's amazing. And just to say to everyone else, like, treat people with compassion.
You get struck down, you tell them lie. You know she bipolar. She might cut you. That was God.
Like, you know, we all have our edgy ratchet, you know what I mean? And oh my God.
I'm a shadow girl.
Remind me to show you this clothing line. It's perfect for us. Okay, so this goes for everybody, okay, guys? Like, seriously. Don't judge a book by it's beyond judging a book by its cover, really. It's just having a sense of compassion and treating people like they're humans, because Maya Angelou said, I am human, so nothing that's done by a human could be above or below me. That means we're all capable of the same thing. So, you know, that's just a statement from Nique to, like, not judge, have compassion. And when you have it in your heart to make a change and be part of the solution, definitely do so. But I wanted to share some solution real quick. Just, I know we don't have much time left, but so compared to 400 crisis intervention training programs that existed in 2008, there were a total of 2,700 in 2019, which is great. We commend them for that. This is change in a positive direction, and we love that.
Okay, give me 30 seconds. Give me 30 seconds to talk about the lack of political justice. Okay, the reason why there were so many police department, like 2019, that was the golden year. So let me back up. 2018 is when I got released. I've been free. I've been home since 2018. So right at 4 years, I've been home. So my story really ain't that long. 2019, people forget what happened in 2019. COVID. And with COVID, what the police officers were doing, or police departments were doing, they were taking the COVID relief funds, and instead of using them for COVID, they were rerouting the funds in the police department and itemizing it as saying, like, we had to hire more police. We had to do this for the police because of COVID. We had to be able to police this community a little different. So they were taking funds that were supposed to be used to help impact citizens impacted by COVID and help them with the healthcare, and showing that they were providing preventative measures by hiring more police officers. And I'm saying that because statistics are very funny. Yeah. If you have less people out and you have more police, it's going to look like there's more police on the street and making a larger impact, but people were in the house. Exactly. The domestic violence rate went up, suicide rate went up, homicide rate went up, like all of those rates went up. But because the police weren't going into houses due to COVID, those numbers are really skewed.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Statistics. Look, if y'all have never taken a class, you will know that it can be designed to show anything, to go in any direction. It just depends on all the variables that you're considering. But I did want to pinpoint this. I believe Denver is America's Denmark. I think it's just the best place to live. I've never lived there, so I don't know that. But
okay, Nique, we ain't gonna ask you why you like Denver. We will not ask.
So it's just
dreadlocks and rebels. Don't be adding to no stereotypes and no stigmas.
Look, I went to Denver on a Greyhound bus ride. I actually had a stop in Denver, and I was there for all of like 4 hours, but it was the best 4 hours. So moving along, they avoided 748 arrests. these are statistics, mind you. In 6 months,
Well,
mental
hell,
health,
what they gonna do?
they're mental health pros. They so what they do in Denver is really cool. They have this star van, right? It's filled with mental health professionals and two EMTs. What they do is instead of dispatching the police when they get those type of calls, they dispatch star. They're only available from 10 to 6. So, but if it happens during that time, you will be addressed by star. They actually have like a small triage, so they will be able to help people suffering from a little, some medical issues. But their main interest is to stop the police from attending to things that's not really in their line of work. You know what I mean? Their scope of knowledge, really. So apparently it's been working really great for them. Like I said, there's 2 EMTs and 3 mental health providers, a peer support navigator. So when they have low risk 911 calls, they send out star, and apparently they're doing really well. So I think that's an option. You know what I mean? Apart from teaching the police to be nice and teaching them to the perfect ways to deal with people with mental health, because of course they're going to have to deal with people with developmental issues, like the young man who got murdered in I think that was like Oklahoma or something. He got murdered at the movie theater because he had Down syndrome, and he watched the movie and he wanted to watch it again. So he went back and he sat down, and they called the cops on him, and he didn't want to get up. So they dragged him, and they did their arrest thing where they stand on your back, and then they fractured his larynx, and he suffered from asphyxiation. Poor guy. He was 26 years old.
So rest in peace to everyone, rest in empowerment, and maybe we'll come back with a part 2. All I'll say is I have experience with that too, the taser up to the bellies with the knee in the back. So I get it. Like, I'm grateful for life, and we're going to continue to say, please keep watching us on Unjust, and see y'all next week. Thank you for co-hosting with me, Nique, and thanks for this phenomenal presentation. Bye.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you, guys.
I like that.